Okay, we're talking about diminishing contrast here, where objects appear to fade off into the background. And the best way to show this kind of example of the diminishing contrast is with some painted little swatches of paper that you've painted gray and black with your craft paint, like this. And so to achieve the effect, you simply take a white index card and you have a painted black index card, and you cut out several shapes that are all black and don't change at all, and glue them down, and you'll see they look very flat. One does not seem closer to the viewer than any of the others. And on this card, which is an index card that's been painted black, I've placed a series of gray pieces that are getting lighter and lighter and lighter, and as they get lighter they appear to be closer and closer to the viewer. The ones that get more and more like the black background, darker black, darker gray, appear to be receding or fading off into the background. And so that's the effect that you're trying to achieve, and the easiest way to do it is with paint. I just painted a series of different grays on index cards and just simply cut out the little squares that I needed, 5 of them with one white one, and placed them on the index card. And then it's just as easy as gluing down the index card pieces onto the other index card in order to achieve the effect. But I think it's important that you sort of gain an understanding of exactly how to use this paint to the best effect. So I'm going to show you real quick how I do it and how I paint an index card, and how you're going to get the best streak-free effect. And so the easiest way to start is simply with a damp brush. It's not going to be too wet, but it will be a little bit moist. And I like to use an index card for mixing. So I simply take some of this craft paint, which you should have in your supplies that were requested at the beginning of the semester. You have a little bit of paint there, a little bit of black, and a little bit of white. And simply to make these swatches, I simply painted a strip onto an index card of each one. So to make a very light gray strip, I just take a little teeny bit of black on my brush and I mix it into my pile of white carefully. If you find you need more, like that's not enough, it's always easy to add a little bit more. It's very difficult to take away. In fact, you can't. So you always add light, or always add dark to light. So I've got a nice gray here. I've mixed it all up so it's nice and consistent. I've got my paint on the brush, and then without adding any water, I simply paint a nice strip here. I let it run over onto the white paper that I have in the background, making sure not to have any streaks or inconsistencies, right? And then if I want to make a darker gray, I simply dip the brush in the black again and add a little more black to this gray mixture here to make just a little bit. You don't need to add too much, or you'll make them too different from each other. And so I mix it up thoroughly so I don't have any streaks. And then I can paint another strip, and you can see it's just slightly darker than the one before it. And I don't have to be too neat about it because I'm going to cut these out, right? And then I can add a little bit more black. Just a little bit, not too much, or it'll get too dark on you. A little bit more black, mix it up thoroughly so that there's no streaks, and paint another swatch. And you can see these are just getting darker and darker, and when they dry, I can cut out little squares just like this in order to make these examples. So you've got an example of diminishing contrast where the objects fade off into the background, and you've got an example without diminishing contrast where all of the figures seem to be the same distance away from the viewer because they don't fade off into the distance. And that's diminishing contrast.